Nige? Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. Now, this is the moment in spring when we go from all the subtle, gentle colours, the primroses and the lemons of early spring, which are so beautiful in their own way, to an explosion of colour, which comes from the tulips. It's as though the season just hits a conveyor belt, and off we go. Today, I will be continuing trying to rectify the tragedy of my blight-stricken box by planting a different kind of hedge.
And Rachel gets an exclusive look behind the scenes at one of the best Alpine collections in the world.
Oh, wow, John, this is amazing.
It's quite impressive, isn't it?
Not just all of that colour, it's the fragrance as well.
While Carol is in Devon, meeting a man who has devoted himself to the glories of the Erythronium.
These are special plants. All year, I wait for them to come up in the spring. If there's one plant that I would never want to be without, it is the Erythroniums.
I've kept these Alpines under cover all winter, not to protect them from the cold at all. They're as tough as old boots, but from the rain. They have very special conditions. They like really good drainage. They can withstand any amount of cold, any amount of heat, but they just hate very wet winters. And you can see that they look good in terracotta. I love the delicacy of the way that each pot creates its own little garden. And there's very, very little to do to look after them. Once you've planted them, they're almost trouble-free. Well, that's fresh in there. What you do need to do at this time of year is just check them over, see if there are any dead pieces that need taking off, if the grit has washed off in the rain, perhaps, to replace it, and that's it. You can, of course, make new plants from the sempervivums. Here, where it's very, very crowded, each one of these will make a new plant. So if I just pull off a rosette like that and just gently tease it out, there it comes. I could pop that up. It's got roots on it, and that would quickly make a new plant. And you can see that's one that was potted up last autumn. Now, of course, these are very common, familiar types. They can take the hardship of an English summer and winter. But there are many, many different types of Alpines, some of which need specialist care. And Rachel has been to the Royal Botanic Garden in Edinburgh to see their huge collection of Alpines.
Alpines may be tiny, but when it comes to adding colour and interest to your garden, they can certainly punch above their weight.
I grew to love Alpines when I was a child because my father had a passion for them. And most weekends we went to the local garden centre and would come back with these little child-sized pots of perfection, which we then planted in our rockery. Now, that was wonderful, but I have to say, it was nothing like this, the rock garden at Edinburgh Botanic Garden. This is home to more than 5,000 plants, and it's just the tip of the iceberg.
In their natural home above the tree line, Alpines withstand extreme weather conditions such as snow, ice, gale-force winds and fierce sunshine. They're small but mighty. But the one thing many of them really don't like is winter wet. So in the UK, some species can be difficult to grow unprotected. These Alpine houses have been built specifically to accommodate the plants which can't easily live outdoors. John Mitchell heads up the Alpine team. He's travelled the globe collecting wild specimens for their ever-evolving collection.
Oh, wow, John, this is amazing.
It's quite impressive, isn't it?
It's really impressive. And you know, the other thing is when you come in, it's not just all of that colour, it's the fragrance as well.
The scent is overpowering, and it's usually from these narcissus. You can get this sort of very sweet scent coming across.
Absolutely beautiful. And one forgets how many small bulbs come into that sort of overall Alpine umbrella.
Yeah, we have the narcissus, we have muscari, we have tulips. Just now, the Alpine house is at its best, and the display is absolutely spectacular.
Lovely primulas there at the end as well.
The Alioneis are spectacular. They always flower really well with us in Edinburgh.
So roughly how many plants do you think are in here?
There's about 200 plants in here, but what we do is every Friday we bring plants from the back area that are in flower into here so the public have something different to see. Behind the scenes, we have about 4,000 or 5,000.
So I'm going to get an exclusive look at those.
You are, yes.
Excellent.
But before we do that, we need to maybe take some of these plants into the back to replace them.
Right. Oh, look in here. Oh!
This is our new bulb house.
So these are all your understudies waiting for their moment in the spotlight, aren't
Yeah,
they?
anything in flower here then gets moved to the front house if we've got space, so they all get their minute of fame.
Tell me about the plants you've got in here. Where have you actually got them from?
This one here, the Fritillaria imperialis, we collected this in 2005 in Iran.
It's absolutely beautiful. And those leaves are really glossy too.
The leaves are lovely, and this lovely dark stem with the red flowers hanging quite tight to it is quite unusual, but an absolutely beautiful plant.
So where else have your plant hunting travels taken you to?
I'm mainly concentrating in Central Asia, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. We've done work in the Russian Altai, and we're going to try and get to Kazakhstan at some point as well.
Because, of course, that term Alpine almost suggests that they're all European in origin. Of course, they come from...
All over the world.
Where has it come from, this obvious love of Alpines?
I think I have to blame my father because he was a student here way back in the 60s and then moved to St Andrews to build a botanic garden there. So from an early age, I was brought up in botanic gardens. It was my playground. And then I got the chance to come here 30-odd years ago, and I've never looked back. I absolutely love the place.
They won't let you go now, you know.
Hopefully not.
Well, I've seen bulbs. You've whetted my appetite. What else is there?
In the other house, I shall show you
Okay.
straight away.
Oh, this is like an Alpine creche, all these tiny plants.
This is where, when plants, we take the cuttings and they've established, they come in here and then we can grow them on, keep an eye on them. Then once they get bigger, we move them into another house.
And you grow them in this sand because?
The sand keeps the roots moist in the summertime, and you'll see everything here is in clay pots. So the clay pot is porous, keep the sand moist. The moisture goes into the clay pot and keeps the roots moist.
Presumably there are Alpines that are very rare to find now in the wild. I mean, is that something that you're looking for in the Botanic Garden to help save those plants?
The Botanic Garden is always looking for rare and unusual plants for conservation. Here we have Dionysia afghanica, which just grows in certain parts of Afghanistan. This plant is probably very endangered in the wild. We also have this plant here, which is Hepatica falconeri, which was only known in Pakistan. And then in 2012, it was found in Kyrgyzstan. We managed to get permission to collect it, and now here it is growing at Edinburgh, so we can do research on
How
it.
exciting. I feel actually so privileged that I've been able to see some of these incredibly rare plants. I know they flower fleetingly and they are small, but how can you not love Alpines?
I totally agree.
My interest in Alpines has only developed very recently. And it's as though I've suddenly realised how jewel-like they are. They are fantastic, so I must go back to Edinburgh. Any excuse to go there is fantastic, and see the collection that they've got. But they're very easy to grow at home, and I've got a nice old stone trough here. Perfect for growing them in. If you can get hold of a trough, use it. If you can't, you can use a sink. You can use any container as long as it's not plastic. Stone or terracotta is ideal because it's porous, so you don't get water collecting. Make sure there is a drainage hole and make sure it's raised up so the water can actually run away rather than just sit underneath it. Put a crock over the hole so it doesn't get clogged up and blocked. And mix up a really, really gritty compost. I've got here a peat-free general-purpose compost mixed in equal volume with grit. Don't cheat on this. If anything, add more grit. That's the crucial thing, drainage. Now, I've got a selection of plants here, and there are so many alpines to choose from, and they're cheap. You can buy plants like this extraordinary gypsophila from Pakistan, a couple of quid. Now, I'm going to just put 2 or 3 together. We've got a little Andrasacea here. These flowers growing up almost like little tiny primulas, which comes from Asia. And then from the mountains of central Spain and Armeria. Little pin-cushion foliage and these beautiful little pink flowers that appear above it. And they'll be happy blasted by icy winds as long as they have light and aren't too wet. This sedum, which I've grown last year in a separate pot, I'd like to pot on into here. What I'm trying to get is glaucous greys and pinks mixing in. These plants are all sun lovers. So you position a trough in maximum sunshine. That's facing south. This actually is a saxifrage, cotyledon, which will flower with white flowers in summer, keeping our pink and white themes. Now you can see I've spaced it out, nothing crowding in on each other. We can always add, we've got room for them to grow. And then I'm going to dress this with grit, partly because it guarantees better drainage and also because it ties it all in together. It looks better. As long as you've got really good drainage, watering them won't harm them at all, and it's necessary to water plants in. It settles them into the compost. But they don't need much attention at all. As long as they've got the drainage and the sunshine, they'll look after themselves. And of course, you can have alpines in the very smallest of gardens, and they look good in a big garden. Every garden should have them. Now, Carol is continuing her journey around Britain, looking at the plants that have shaped our gardens and meeting the people who have devoted themselves to caring for them. This time, she's gone to Devon to meet Keith Wiley, who has a superb collection of Erythroniums.
With their gentle, charming flowers set amongst handsome marbled leaves. Few plants give as much pleasure as the Erythronium. For me, these exquisite little flowers really epitomise the whole soul, the spirit of spring. But for all their beauty and refinement, you very seldom see Erythroniums grown in gardens. It's as though people assume that something that looks so special must be difficult to grow. But one man in particular has spent many, many years of his life getting to know these plants intimately. For much of his life, Keith Wiley has been captivated by them. His work has expanded what this genus can offer all our UK gardens. Have you always been in love with these plants?
I certainly have.
What is it about them that you love so much?
I think it's partly the fact that they are actually only there in the spring. They're just so beautiful. I've never seen an ugly Erythronium. To me, they're sort of epitome of grace. And each individual flower is like a sort of Chinese pagoda. You know, it's just beautiful shaped.
I mean, there are a few Eurasian species, aren't there? But the great majority of them are American.
Yeah, I think there's about 30 species, and probably 3/4 of them grow over on the Pacific Northwest of America.
And how did you feel the very first time you saw them growing in the wild?
Well, it was almost a religious moment for me when I saw Erythroniums for the first time. Very, very special.
I suppose that actually seeing them growing in the wild must inspire you to try different things yourself.
Yeah, without doubt. I mean, there was one occasion where I came round in southern Oregon, and we saw a whole mountainside. There was some growing underneath the shrubs, and the colour of the flowers was a perfect combination with the fading flowers above. And I thought, I took the same principle, and you actually, it happens here, look. You see these Erythroniums here, they're all in their fair shades of pink, and they're matched by the pink and the white of the magnolia above.
What species is that?
This one's Erythronium revolutum.
What kind of conditions do they need?
They want the same conditions as hostas or primroses.
Woodsy kind of soil.
Exactly that, yeah. Moisture retentive, but reasonably well drained, you know, but not waterlogged.
No. Oh, look at that. That's exquisite.
The way that most species proliferate is by seed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way they do it in the wild. I planted here at the top of the slope so that it will seed down the slope and colonise this little bank here.
If you look carefully, you can see these tiny baby seedlings. How exciting!
Well, they're just like little blades of grass, aren't they? It's so easy to weed out.
Yes.
I mean, some of them have still got their little seed pods on the top.
So when you come across these plants in the wild, are there lots of natural hybrids between them?
No, they don't really naturally hybridise because they grow at such widely spaced distances. I mean, they're growing 50, 60 miles apart, so they've got no chance.
Right.
Unless you've got long-distance bees.
Yeah. They don't fly that far, do they?
No. 30, 40 years ago, there was only 5 or 6 species in our gardens. And then in the last 30 years, lots more species have come in, and the bees have had a chance to actually do their business, and we've got lots of different hybrids starting to arrive. The big difference between species and hybrids is that species basically will come from seed, whereas a hybrid, you have to divide them.
Yeah. And what are the sort of qualities you go for?
Well, I think the real beauty about hybrids is their flower power.
Yeah.
They can make big, solid batches of colour. This one here, right in front of me, is one I named after my sister, Jenny. It produces a lovely, quite late in the season, patch of this lovely pink with these really inside this really quite delicate markings. That's one of the real beauties of Erythroniums, is the beauty of just turning their faces up.
How many have you grown?
I've probably named about 15 or 20 so far, and I'd say we're trialling another 100 or so to see.
People are going to be so enamoured of this plant now that they've seen it growing in your garden. But how do you get hold of Erythroniums? They're not the most sort of common of things, are they, in garden centres and nurseries?
They're not really sort of lending themselves to mass production, really. So perhaps more realistically, the best way is to order them from specialist or reputable firms who will send them, lift them at the right time, pack them in the right way, and send them off to you at the correct time.
Which is what, August,
It's probably
September?
going to be sometime in late summer, I think, right through into very early autumn. I mean, if there's one plant that I would want to grow and would never want to be without, it is the Erythroniums. All year, I wait for them to come up in the spring. They're so special. And on a day like this, I mean, what could be better, really?
No, it was obviously meant to be,
It
wasn't
was.
it?
Obviously, Keith's Erythroniums are extraordinary, but I find even just having a few here in the garden transforms it. Because Erythroniums have a mixture of genuine exotica, but also a kind of easy elegance that almost no other plant can provide. A month or so ago, we began the process of taking out box hedges that had been afflicted with box blight. This was a major change to the garden, and the box blight is still present. It's killed back great lengths of hedge, and we may well have to take it all out. But for the moment, we're stopping where we are. Now, I can't put box black in because the fungal spores that cause the blight can remain in the soil for 5 or even more years. So what I'm going to do is plant a yew hedge. Now, yew, that's Taxus baccata, is normally used in a garden as a big backdrop. But what I want to do is grow it as a low hedge. So this is a fairly new development on how to use yew. Now, it doesn't matter whether you want to grow a 20-foot yew hedge or a 3-foot one, or to be honest, any hedge. There are certain things you need to do to prepare it. This has had the roots of the old hedge taken out, and it's been dug over thoroughly and grit added. It is important when you're preparing for a hedge to get a nice wide, clean area. Don't just dig one spade's width. Clear the ground, if need be, a metre wide. There's plenty of room and soil for this to grow into. Yew needs good drainage, and it hates sitting in wet, cold soil. So on our fairly heavy soil in this wet part of the country, we always add grit for any kind of tree or shrubby planting, but particularly for yew. If your soil is wet and cold, you must add drainage. The next step is to make sure it's straight. Get or make a line, which is simply string attached to sticks. Set it back from the edge of the path or the border, because, of course, any hedge will grow wide, however much you cut it. Rule of thumb, you need to allow about 3 foot width for it. I've made myself a measuring stick. So plant that along there. If we put the first one just a little away from the edge, like that, and plant along, I'm going to put these at 18-inch centres. If that looks frighteningly far apart, stick with it. These plants will grow nice and strong and very quickly meet to join a hedge. Also, yew is quite expensive. Plant them with enough room for the roots to develop, and you'll get a much healthier, stronger hedge. So that's plenty close enough. Tell you what, I can take some clothes off. Don't be tempted to plant in a saucer, or in terms of a hedge, a groove, because the water will collect. If anything, plant them on a ridge. In fact, the soil here, you can see, mounds up above the ground level. So that, in effect, is a ridge. But if in doubt, mound the soil up and make sure the roots are never sitting in wet, cold water. Yew takes the first year to establish. So I wouldn't expect any significant growth on these in 2014. But next spring, next May, June, they will really start to put on new growth. And most of that initially will be upwards, but they'll start to thicken out. And you just keep the sides this way trimmed, and that will encourage lateral growth. And they will meet and join up in about the second or third year. And I would expect this to be a hedge that I can top off at 3 foot, because we won't cut the top until it reaches its ultimate height, after 4 or 5 years, because yew grows about 6 inches a year. Even though I said that yew hate sitting in water, that doesn't mean to say that they don't need water. They do. They need watering once a month, really good soak once a month, unless it doesn't rain. And if it doesn't rain for a week, water them. And you do this for the first summer. Take it through till October, and thereafter, they can look after themselves. When I've watered them thoroughly, they must be mulched to keep the moisture in and keep the weeds down. Now, you may not be planting hedges this weekend, but here are some other things you can be getting on with.
If you're raising your sweet peas from seed, and they're now growing strongly, like these, which I sowed in March, it's time to pinch out their growing tips. This will encourage a bushier plant, and then when you plant it out next month, will give you more flowers throughout the growing season. At this time of year, herbaceous perennials are growing very fast, and this makes them vulnerable to damage from any bad weather. So it's important to stake them before they need it. I like to use homemade wire supports, but twine and canes or prunings from shrubs will do the job just as well. Whatever you use, gently support and prop the plant up so it looks as natural as possible without lashing them into a harsh straitjacket. Courgettes are one of my favourite summer vegetables, and now is the time to sow them. I use small pots and sow 2 seeds per pot, and will weed out one of them if they both germinate. Put them somewhere warm, water them, and leave them to grow. If the weather stays cold, you may have to pot them on again. But don't plant them out until the nights have warmed up, and then they will grow away strongly.
I don't think I've ever known such a good year for purple sprouting broccoli, which is a treat. So much nicer than the great clumpy broccoli that you buy or get served. The delicacy of purple sprouting broccoli. And it's going to seed really fast. There's still another couple of pickings, but any warm weather and it's just shooting into flower. So those will come out over the next week and be followed in rotation by root crops, carrots, parsnips, and there's some space here, and I want to put some parsnips in now. Loosen the soil, rake it over so it's a reasonable tilth. And then don't tread on the soil if you can help it. Now, I just use the side of my hand to make a furrow. Just run down either side. Now, the seeds are flat and quite good size, but they're very light, so it's easy to get too many in together. So, a decent-sized parsnip wants to be spaced about 3 or 4 inches apart. And there are 2 ways you can do this. You can either sow them as thinly as you can and then thin them more later, or sow 2 or 3 seeds in little clumps about 4 inches apart. Parsnips are slow to germinate. This can mean you lose them. You get weeds growing up, you don't quite know where to weed because there's no sign of the parsnips for up to about 5 weeks. So what I do is sow radish in the same drill. And the radish germinate very quickly, in a couple of weeks at the most, and they're ready to eat after about 4 weeks. So from 4 to 8 weeks, you harvest the radish, by which time the parsnip have germinated and starting to grow. Clear the last of the radish away, and you have a line of parsnips in their wake. Neither affects the other's growth rate, but you use the space to twice the effect, and also, apart from anything else, it just marks the row. So I've got a cherry bell here. Sprinkle the radish in. I'll fit another couple of rows of parsnip and radish in this little plot. But that's all we've got time for this week. Bye-bye.